So this is part 2 of creating a custom post type in WordPress. So in the first video, we created a custom post type, but I kept it really simple. And I kept it simple for a reason. I like for my code to be as clean and as simple as possible. If I was doing this for our website, IdeaPro, or one of my personal sites, I would keep it really simple because all I needed was a custom post type. If you're doing it for a client or to sell the plugin or whatever, you want to go into more detail about it. So in this video, we'll go through some more detail about the custom post type. We'll go into adding custom fields, adding meta boxes, how to save those custom fields, and how to call those custom fields later for like in our shortcode that we created. So let's get started. So here on the page, this is the sample page that we put our shortcode on. We have here the WordPress admin for IdeaPro.tv that we're working on. All right. So let's go over to our code, because there's one thing I didn't talk about that I really need to address, and I should have addressed it on the first video. In my plugin tutorial videos that I did, I talked about we created a shortcode in that video, and this is the wrong way to actually do a shortcode here. And I'll explain why, but I did this just as demonstration, but I should have went through and made sure you guys understood how to do it correctly. And so let me show you a reason why it's not right to print out a shortcode like this. So if we go to our sample page in the admin, so here's our shortcode. I'm going to add a little bit of text above this. This is the text above the shortcode, and then I'm going to add some text below it. Oops. This is the text below the shortcode. I'm going to do update. I'm going to go back here and I'm going to refresh. So see how this text is supposed to be above the shortcode and this is below the shortcode? It didn't work correctly because we printed out the lines of stuff here. So the way to fix this and the way to do it right is we need to come back here and we need to create a string. So we're going to create a string called content. Now in my tutorials I don't really use comments that much, but in the live code that I do, I put a lot of comments in there, whether it's for me or whether it's for someone else that's going to be doing programming on it. Even for me, I want to make sure those comments, I know I can go exactly directly to that area. Once you get a lot of code in here, it could be hard to find what you're looking for. So string to return. All right, that's all I'm going to put in there. So this string content, and then here we're going to use content dot equals. Now what this dot equal does is it appends this content to this string, and then we'll do the same thing here, content dot equals. Now we could easily just take this out, but then we would get a notice that this content doesn't exist yet. So we want to make sure to have this in there. Now you could add in here below is the posts or something like that, right? But we don't want to put anything in there. We just want to have a blank string, and then right here we want to return that string. So we're going to say content, content. So now we're saving it. So now if we come back here and refresh this page, now we have the text above the shortcode and the text below the shortcode. So the shortcode shows up in the body where we want it to show up. So that's important to know, to not print out the items from a shortcode. You want to return it, right? All right. So now let's get into the details of our custom post type here. All right. So in the labels, there are several different labels that we can do. So if we go back here and look, like here is examples. Here it says add new. And it says, if you go into here, it says edit post, and it says add new here. You go over here and it says, so there's somewhere over here, I don't remember, preview changes. I don't know. Well, anyway, we'll get into it in just a second. So what we want to do is we're going to go back to here. We want this to say, add new example. When you go in to edit one of these, it needs to say edit example. It needs to call out that post type. So what we're going to do is we're going to come into here and we're going to add under labels. So under labels, we're going to add singular name. And we're going to say example, because that's going to be the example. So then we can do add new is equal to add new example. So if we save that and go back and look, and we click on examples, so now we have add new example. So then we can come back in and we can say, we can do one that is add new item. Same thing, we'll just say add new example. Oops. All right, we can say edit item. Right. So we want to say edit example, and we'll save that and we'll go back and look at it. So now we've got examples, we can add new example, go in here to click on this, it says edit example, add new example. All right, and there's more of these we can go through, but I don't want to get into all the different ones. The only other one I would probably say is we want to do search items. So search examples, there we go. So that goes back to, if we click on here, so search examples, and that's what I was thinking about a minute ago when I was looking to the right side there. So if you want to be able to search these different types, these different examples here, you can change that button to say search examples. Again, this is just details that you want to do if it's going to be a plugin that you're going to sell, or you're going to even if clients are going to be logging into their sites doing stuff. For me, I don't care that our custom post type doesn't have those items. It doesn't affect how it works at all. All right, so that's kind of some of the items, some of the labels that you can do, and there's more, and we can go into those if we need to in a different video, but I think this is enough that you can kind of see that you can change some of the stuff, right? All right, so menu position, public, and supports. So we did title, editor, and thumbnail. So one of the things that we want to add in here is to exclude from search. Exclude from search. And we're going to say true. And what that is on the front end of the website, if you've got search capabilities, which a lot of sites do, you can exclude this post type from that search. We're going to say true because we don't really want it to show up, but you could say exclude from search and say false. All right. All right. So the next thing that we want to do is we can say has archives, and we just want to say false because I don't care if it shows the archives or not, it doesn't matter. So you can do rewrite, you can do all kinds. Again, there's more and more features you can put in here, but it's not important most of the time for most stuff. So the one thing we do want to do is we want to add a meta box for our custom fields. So we're going to say register meta box CB. And this needs to be our callback function, but we haven't created it yet. So we're going to say example meta box let's just say example meta box. All right. So then we're going to come down here and say function example meta box. And then underneath this, we need to say add action. All right, add meta box. And we need to put in our callback here. All right, so then here in this function, we need to say add meta box. And this one is actually add meta boxes. So add meta box. All right. So this is the WordPress function that calls a meta box, and you can do multiples, and we'll explain that here in just a second. So the first thing we need to do is an ID for our first meta box. So example meta box custom fields, right? So, whoops. So that's our unique ID for that meta box. All right. And the second thing that we're going to call is the title, or the second argument is the title. So example custom fields. All right. And I'll show you where that title shows up in just a minute. So then a callback function for our meta box. So we're going to say example meta box display, right? So then that callback function, we need to create a function here called with that same name. And we're going to just say right now, whoops, for right now we're just going to say, here it is. And we'll put some other details in there in just a minute. All right, so we're going to come back up here. After our callback function, we need to tell it what post type. Again, so if you come up here and click on examples, this post type here is what we want to use. So you can put this as an array, and you can say post pages and then your custom post type, but we just want this meta box to show up on our example post types. So we're going to say the post type is example. This next argument is where we want that meta box to show up. So if we go in and look at one of these, we have the title, we have the editor, we have featured image over here, and that's it. So this area here is called normal. So if we want a meta box to show up down here, we would say normal here. If we wanted it to show up as a side meta box, we would say side, right? So we could easily say side. But for this example, we're going to say normal. We'll add another one here in just a second. That is the side. And so then this next argument is the priority. Now, you don't even have to put this in. You can say it's a high priority. You can say it's a low priority. You can completely leave it out, and it will default to default, right? So, but we're going to say high priority, which means we want it to show up above anything other than the editor. So if you have other other meta boxes on this, like if you have Yoast, for example, it'll show up down here, and you can tell it to show up above it. You can also rearrange those and stuff like that. So now we have our example meta box for custom fields. All right, so we're going to save that. And if everything is right, I do this by memory so much I sometimes miss something. We'll add a comma there just to make sure. I didn't need it, but we'll add it there anyway. All right, so now if we refresh this page, we have example custom fields meta box. Like I said, you can drag this around and move it up and stuff like that if there's other meta boxes down here, but we only have this one, so that's good. Now that we've added a meta box here, we're going to add a custom field. All right. So we can take this out, and we can even just do it straight HTML if we want. We can escape the PHP. Now, you don't need a form like you were creating a form for the front end of a website. The form is all here in this update button and stuff like that. So when we create a text box or a text area or a radio button or select field or anything like that, it's automatically going to be included in the form. So we're going to do an example of input type text, and we're going to say name is equal to, let's do subtitle is what we'll call it. All right, subtitle, and we're going to say placeholder is subtitle, and let's close that off. And we can put a label in here if we want. Subtitle. Okay. Now if we refresh, now we have subtitle. Now WordPress has their own back-end classes. So for this, we're going to say wide fat. Okay, we'll refresh. So basically now that stretches the entire length of this meta box. Now you can go up here and you can do your own style. I wouldn't recommend putting it here. There's actually another way you can do it, but you could do your own style here. You could say example field, right? Oops. And so here in the style, you could say dot example field, font size is 22 pixels, padding is 20 pixels. Let's make it really big. All right. So then we go back here and refresh, and so now we've got this huge field here, and we can say, oops, width is 100%. So now we have this huge subtitle that we're going to say, this is the subtitle, right? We don't want it to look like that though. So we're going to take this out. But we could do this. We could say function example post type CSS admin, right? That way it's the admin area, right? And we can say add action admin head and our callback function. And then in here we can close the PHP tag. We could copy this and paste it here, and then refresh. And so we have that now as part of the overall CSS of the admin area, right? We don't want to do that though. I want to take this out. I want to just use wide fat as the class for this field. We'll refresh. So now we just have, because we don't need it to look any special way, it's the admin area. If you're doing this for a customer, you might want it to look different. You might want to color the field, you might border, whatever. So that's really all we need for that. Subtitle. So now if we want to do another one, we could call it, let's do author's name. Let's do authors, and we'll just do author's name. So author name and wide fat, we'll leave that the same. So now we have a secondary field. And of course, we don't have any spacing in here or anything like that. That's just CSS. You guys can style that if you want. We'll add a break in here just to separate them a little bit. Maybe 2 breaks. All right, there we go, just to separate them. So now we've added those 2 custom fields, and if we go in and we put in a subtitle, this is the subtitle, and we hit update, it's not going to save this subtitle in the post. We need to tell it to save that. All right, and then we also need to call that once it's saved. All right, so we'll go ahead and call that now. So we'll say subtitle is equal to get post meta, because that's what we're going to store these custom fields in, is the post meta. If you look at on a post and you turn on, oops, let's go into a post, and you turn on custom fields, right? This is the custom field area that comes already built into WordPress for posts and pages. You can enable custom fields in the supports right here, supports custom fields. I don't like doing this though, because you want it to be specific, right? So, but this, if you create a custom field here, it saves it in the post meta, just like what we're going to do. So we'll turn this off, and we'll go back to examples, come back in here. All right, so we've got our two custom fields. So now we're going to call those custom fields, right? So the one thing we need to do is we need to say global post. So post ID, and we're going to call in the subtitle, because that's what we're calling it, and we're going to say true. Now what this does is it gets the post meta for this post ID that we're working on. So for this one here, it's post ID 8, I'm sorry. So post ID 8, and then it's going to get subtitle, and then true is whether it returns a singular or an array of stuff. So if you don't put true in there and you do this, it's going to return an array. We want it to return true. We want it to return a single item. And then down here in the value, we can say print, whoops, $ subtitle. And the same thing with author name here. We can come up here and we can say get post meta, author name, whoops, author name. And same thing, we can do a value and author name. So if it's blank, it'll be blank. If it doesn't find anything, it'll be blank. If it finds a meta value for subtitle or author name, it will fill these in. Okay? All right, but we haven't created a way for it to save these yet. So that's our next function that we're going to do. All right. So function example post type save. Okay. All right. So then on this, we need to create the add action. You say add action. Save post, and then our callback function. All right. So in here, there's several things that we need to do for it to save it. The first thing we want to do is we want to pass through the post ID in the argument. All right. So the first thing that the next thing that we want to do is we need to check and see if it's an autosave, if it's a revision, or if it's a valid nonce. And I can go into details about that later on. But the first thing that we want to do is we want to say, is it an autosave? So we can say WP is autosave, post autosave. I forget that one sometimes. So WP is post autosave. and of course we're going to pass through the post ID. So then we can also say, is it a revision? WP is revision, post ID, and is nonce. And I can explain that later. I'm not going to go into detail about that right now. So actually, I'm not even going to worry about that one right now, because that's more than I want to get into. All right, so if is autosave, oh man, sorry. If autosave or is revision return, means I don't want to do anything if it's an autosave or if it's a revision. Now, the next thing I want to do is, because I don't like to save those custom fields if it's a revision or autosave. If you want to, you can do that. It's perfectly fine. I like for someone to actually click the update button for different things. Some things we do, some things we don't. All right, so this, we need to get the post, right? So we need to say post is equal to get post, and we're going to say post ID. We're using this argument up here to get the post. And then here we're going to say if $post type is equal to, and again we're going to use our example up here, post type. If post, where'd I go? Oh, here it is. If post type is equal to example, then save this. And the reason why we're doing that is we're not going to have custom fields for our post and pages. If you are, then you can call that as whatever. You can just say if it's, you can just put it in there. But we're not using these custom fields on post and pages. We're only going to use it on our example post type. So I don't want to run this part if it's a post or a page. I only want to run it if it's our example custom post type. So if post type is equal to example, then we're going to save the custom fields data. All right. So now we're going to say if array key exists, just to save us, just to make sure. And we're going to go up and we're going to get subtitle, and this is going to be in the post. And this is, post is the form has been submitted, right? So then in here we're going to save that information. The easiest way to do it is just say update post meta, and we're going to say post ID. This is because this is the post ID. The next argument of this is going to be, whoops, come on, the title or the key of the post meta, and then the value, which is going to be underscore post, and this same thing, subtitle, right? So that is for the subtitle. Now we're going to do the same thing for author name. I like this code to be a little bit straighter than that. There we go. Straighten it up a little bit. There we go. So we'll come back up here. We'll get author name. We'll say if author name exists in the post, update the post meta for author name. All right. So that's pretty much all we need. So now, if we've done this code correctly, we're going to go to examples. We're going to open up this second post, and we're going to say subtitle is, this is the subtitle of this example post type. There we go. And then the author name is Mark, right? So if we've done this correctly, it should save. This page isn't working correctly. We have missed something. Post type, post example, return. What did we miss? Function, add action. Is post revision. There we go. So let's go back. Sorry about that. So we're going to say this is the subtitle and this is the author name. So update. There we go. Look at that. So now this is the subtitle and this is the author's name. So we go back to examples, come into second post, it's still there. I do some of this code by memory, or I do this code by memory, and sometimes I forget the function names. So that's the reason why it's always good to have the WordPress codex open in another tab that you can go back and look and do searches and stuff and make sure the code is correct. So, but we found that error pretty quick. All right, so now we've saved this and we've added the custom fields. So now we're going to use that in our shortcode function here. All right, so it works the same way that we did up here, right, with these meta posts, or post meta, sorry. So we can come down and actually we need to do it per each post. So in here, so here we have for each our posts as key equals value. So in here is where we actually need to bring in get post meta. So we need to change this to value because it's going through and pulling the details of that post as value, subtitle, and author name. Now, we didn't add a author name and subtitle here, which is okay. We're not going to worry about that right now. So here we're going to say $content equal to author, and we're going to say $, author name, and then we're going to say let's just leave it like that. One thing we do want to add is I'm going to make this a emphasis, just as example here. And then the title, we're going to add underneath this, we're going to say content. We're going to put in the subtitle. We don't need, let's just do a title here. So subtitle. All right. So now if we go back and we come back to our sample page and we refresh, now we have author is Mark and the title, we need a break here. Actually, our horizontal rule needs to go after that. So let's do a break and then we'll change this to an HR. There we go. All right, so here we have Mark. We'll put a space in there. Right, so this is the subtitle of the content of this post. So we have the title, the subtitle. There is no content. So in this sub post here, this is the content of the post. This is the second. Oh, we didn't pull the content. What do we do wrong here? Subtitle, true value ID, subtitle. So we did a subtitle, right? this is the subtitle. Oh, it is in there. I'm sorry. It's just we didn't add a break after it. So we'll do that. There we go. So now we have the title, we have the subtitle, and then we have the content of the post, and then the author. This one doesn't have a subtitle and doesn't have an author, so these areas are blank. So now you can actually, you could say if subtitle is equal to blank, don't do anything else, you know, you could do it that way. Or you could say if it's not blank, include the subtitle. So now you don't have that extra break in there. And the same thing with the author. If $author name is not equal to blank, and then we'll put a curly bracket close over there. So now we have a subtitle, the content, author mark. On this one there's no author, so we're not showing it. All right, so that is basically how to add a custom field, post type, and all that stuff. And I'm not sure what else to add in here. Well, you guys let me know in the comments if there's something else I need to add. If not, then we're good. I don't know what else to add. So hope you liked the video, like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks.